Let's talk about floods. Today we'll learn about floods, causes of floods, the types of floods, which are flash flood, slow onset flood, and storm surge flood, flood forecasting and warning, and safety tips for before, during, and after floods. What are floods? Floods are natural events in which a dry area or a dry piece of land suddenly gets submerged underwater. It simply means there is too much water everywhere that's normally dry, even around our houses. Floods are very dangerous. The immediate impacts of floods include drowning, injuries, hypothermia, and animal bites. Floodwaters are also known to harbor diseases. The overflowing water carries away objects like houses, bridges, furniture, crops and trees, farm animals, and even people. Due to the natural behavior of water, it moves from higher ground level to lower ground level. This means the lower ground is a lot more likely to experience flooding. Water levels recede or go down at a slower rate than it rises. Why do floods occur? Let's explore the main reasons, starting with rain. Whenever it rains heavily and there is less drainage, flooding occurs. Breaking of dams also cause flooding. When there's too much water behind a dam, the force of water breaks it, causing overflowing of water, which results in flooding. Other factors that tend to accelerate the development of a flood are topography, basin size, ground surface characteristics, river slope, and others. There are three types of floods, namely flash flood, slow onset flood, and storm surge flood. Let's begin with flash floods. A flash flood is a flood that develops in less than 6 hours. It has a short duration with a relatively high peak discharge. Flash floods are a very significant hazard worldwide, causing the highest number of deaths per number of people affected. Flash floods usually develop in small catchments, characterized by a steep slope or impervious surface, as shown in this graph. Flash floods can occur almost everywhere, but most commonly in low-altitude areas with poor drainage systems. In Fiji, flash floods are common hazardous events that pose a serious threat to populations. In recent years, floods and landslides have claimed lives of people, damages to properties and infrastructure, putting back decades of development. In April of 2018, Tropical Cyclone Josie brought torrential weekend rains and flooding in the town of Bar on the island of Viti Levu, causing 4 fatalities. There is an urgent need to improve the detection and forecasting of flash flood threats because flash floods are complex hydrometeorological events. Fiji Meteorological Service has ventured into acquiring a software called Fiji Flash Flood Guidance System, Fiji FFGS, which will supplement existing systems for monitoring and early warning for floods. Flash Flood Guidance System FFGS has been developed as a state-of-the-art analysis and forecasting tool to address flash floods risk. Flash flood guidance (FFG) is the amount of rainfall of a given duration and over a given catchment that is just enough to cause flooding conditions at the outlet of the draining stream. Using the remote sense rainfall estimate and precipitation forecast, the system helps flood forecasters analyze conditions that may trigger flash flood. The FFGS uses remote sense precipitation data collected from weather radars, satellite, automatic weather station, numerical weather prediction models. How does Fiji FFGS work? The observed and forecasted rainfall amounts are compared with how much rainfall is needed to exceed soil and channel storage. The FFGS system generates information, flash flood risk maps ranging from 12, 24 and up to 36 hours in advance, providing time for planning and preparation. It also generates average soil moisture content on an hourly interval. FFGS values amount of rainfall needed to cause flash flood over next 1, 3 and 6 hours. Flood and flash flood warnings. Based on the remote sense data collection, numerical weather forecast model, the guidance products generated from Fiji FFGS and information collected from ground truthing, the flood forecasters analyze this available information to produce flood and flash flood warnings for Fiji. How does it work? Using remote sensing-based rainfall estimates and precipitation forecasts, the system helps forecasters analyze conditions that may trigger flash floods, such as heavy rainfall, snowmelt, and rainfall on saturated soils. Observed and forecasted rainfall amounts are compared with how much rainfall is needed to exceed soil and channel storage capacities, resulting in flooding. Forecasters incorporate their experience with local conditions, additional data and information, and any last-minute local observations from other stations. Fiji FFGS is funded by the Climate Risk Early Warning System (CREWS) initiative and Environment and Climate Change Canada (ECCC), and implemented by the World Meteorological Organization (WMO) and the Hydrological Research Center (HRC). It uses the best science of meteorology and hydrology to further improve the quality and lead time for early warning of flash flooding. A slow onset flood tends to develop slowly and can last for days or even weeks. This type of flood tends to give people time to prepare themselves. The last type of flood is storm surge floods. This happens during a storm or cyclone when the sea estuary level gets elevated by the passage of a low-pressure center. To put it in simple terms, it's a strong wave of water that sweeps onto land. This is an incredibly dangerous threat for people living along the coast. The following footage is taken from the flooding which occurred during Cyclone Josie in Nandi on the 1st of April in 2018. This was Marine Drive, Lautoka, on 8th April 2020 in the morning. Storm surges smashed over the seawall and flooded part of the foreshore area. Next, we'll look at flood forecasting or warning. This helps keep the people away from the floodwater. Forecasting is estimation of stage, discharge, time of occurrence, and duration of a flood, especially of peak discharge at a specified point on a stream, resulting from precipitation and/or snowmelt. It's a warning advance notice that a flood may occur in the near future at a certain station or in a certain river basin. Let's look at the flood forecasting stages. First, let's look at flood alert. This is the first stage of the warning. If your area is issued with a flood alert, it means there is a possibility of some flooding. Next is flood warning. If a flood warning is issued in your area, it means flooding is expected and will cause disruption. The next stage is severe flood warning. This warning is issued when serious flooding is expected and there's imminent danger to life and property. Next, flood cancellation. This is issued when the flood water levels are going down and no flood alerts are in force any longer. Finally, flood control. Keeping the flood water away from the people. It is the protection of land areas from overflow. or minimization of damage caused by flooding. Here are some safety tips to take heed of before, during, and after a flood. Before flooding. If you have pre-information about flooding, be prepared to evacuate. Keep an eye on weather conditions and stay updated with latest weather and flood forecast. Keeping a portable radio, spare batteries, food, any needed medication, and emergency kit at hand. Store water in sealed plastic containers as water supply may be disrupted. Move livestock to higher ground. Secure objects that can float and cause damage. And evacuate when necessary and when it is safe to do so. During a flood, avoid areas prone to flooding. Never attempt to cross flooded rivers or streams, as you could get injured, catch diseases, or even drown. Never allow children to play around floodwaters or storm drains. And do not drive or walk into flooded water, as it only takes 15 centimeters of water to knock you off your feet. 30 centimeters can make your car float, and 46 centimeters can carry away even larger vehicles. Remember, when flooded, turn around, don't drown. After a flood, re-enter buildings with caution. Be alert for fire hazards such as broken electrical wires. If building has been underwater, do not switch on the main. Do not use appliances or equipment until they have been cleaned, dried, and thoroughly checked for damages. Keep away from disaster areas. We hope you enjoyed this lesson on floods.